Thank you, Bharati. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How is everybody today?
Awake and ready.
Yay. Our affirmation this morning, well, thank you everyone for coming today. It's always a joy to spend this time together. Our affirmation this morning reminded me of the story of the little boy that went out shopping with his mom, and he went to see Santa. And Santa asked him what he wanted for Christmas, and he told him. Well, a little bit later on in the day, he was still shopping with his mom. They went into another store. He went to see Santa again. Santa once again asked him what he wanted for Christmas, and the little boy just shook his head. He said, "You know, Santa, you really ought to write these things down." Our topics this morning are practicality and Christmas. But fortunately, we also have another topic, living in the presence of God. Such a beautiful reminder, especially this time of year, as we're trying to juggle the extra activities and events that we do, just remembering to live in the presence of God. Hold that presence of spirit, the spirit of joy, of giving, of kindness in everything we do. So I thought I would read, instead of from Whispers this morning, Yogananda's Christmas greeting. This he wrote in 1937. So if you want to close your eyes and feel for these are Yogananda's words about Christmas. Christ comes every year newly cradled in our freshly wakened devotion. Though Jesus was born long ago, we are happy to find his Christ wisdom born in our joy every year at Christmas. Let us celebrate Christ in a new way this year by remodeling the cradle of our consciousness and by decorating it with the dazzling soul qualities of brotherhood, humbleness, faith, meditative desire, willpower, self-control, renunciation, and unselfishness. These are the ornaments which our baby Christ ever loves to play with. We will celebrate his birth by exercising imperishable gifts, by making ourselves and our friends happier, by being better, and by more love of God. With the coming of the omnipresent baby Christ another time, the cradle of our consciousness will expand and improve and keep developing until it can fully hold him. Let us prepare to clean this cradle, rusty with selfishness, divine indifference, and sense attachments, by polishing it with deep, daily divine ecstasy, introspection, and discrimination, that we may celebrate the birth of the newborn babe or Christ consciousness on the coming Christmas, fittingly, everlastingly, and joyously. I wish you all an uplifting Christmas and an enlightening New Year. Paramahansa Yogananda. So Yogananda, in his book, The Autobiography of a Yogi, he described divine vision as circumference nowhere, how do you say?
Center everywhere.
Center everywhere, thank you. And so what does he mean by that? That we can see God in everything, in everyone, in every atom, in all of creation, and yes, even in us, in you and in me. And Swami Kriyananda would often talk about this statement that Yogananda would often make. He would say, Swami Kriyananda would say, it's helpful to start somewhere. How do we take this big thought that God is in everything and in everywhere, in every atom? Swami Kriyananda would say, it's helpful to start right here with us, right inside of us. Start with us. And so that's what our reading is reminding us this morning, that to live in the presence of God, we start first with us. We start inside of us first. Yogananda always talked about Christmas, and he loved Christmas. If you read any of the books, he just loved. He played Santa Claus himself many times, just giving gifts. He just really got into the spirit of it. But he always encouraged all his disciples to have the balance of the inner, the spiritual Christmas, and the social Christmas. So you'll see, as you know, in our schedule, we've got opportunities to have that inner Christmas, that spiritual Christmas with our longer meditations. And then, of course, we have all the festivities that are going on. But how do we live in that presence? It's so important. I thought of 4 things that could help us. 1, start with things that are easier. Where do you feel God's Spirit more easily? Is it in gardening? Is it in cooking? Is it in sharing just little acts of kindness? Whatever those things are, Do them, continue to do them, but this season reminds us to expand them, right? It's the season of giving. Offer them to each other. In the autobiography of a yogi also, Yogananda devoted a whole chapter to Therese Newman. She was the stigmatist who lived in Bavaria, and she would receive the wounds of Christ, and she would go into ecstatic vision. And here she was reliving the passion of Christ. Here she was having these really deep experiences. But if you read in another book, and I don't remember where it was, she also served. There wasn't a hospital, I believe, in the town where she lived in Bavaria. So after people would go see the doctors, or they would come to Teresa Newman, they would come to her and she would care for them. She had a garden. I think it mentions this in the autobiography of a yogi. She had a garden where she grew flowers. Well, she grew them, and I think I read that she grew them for the altar in the local church. So even Therese Newman, who was having these deep experiences, what did she do? She also shared them. So whatever those things are that come naturally to us, whatever it is, whatever brings that joy, share those things with each other. Second point is we all do mundane tasks. We all have something that we do repetitively. We have a tool we call japa, which is the repetition of God's name, or using mantra, which is mind tool. A friend always says a saint is made in the kitchen, and I keep thinking of all those at Laurelwood. They wash a lot of dishes, so there's a lot of saints being made in the kitchen there. But whatever our tasks are, driving to work every day, getting our lunch ready for our children, whatever those tasks are where we can practice that repetition, that japa again, that repetition of Christ's name. Another one is asking for help of the masters. I love the prayer of the man that says, "So far, so good, Lord. I haven't hurt anyone's feelings. I haven't done anything wrong," whatever the list is. But in a few minutes, I'm going to be getting out of bed, and I'm going to need a lot more help. But asking the masters to help us, how can we hold on to this experience and meditation that we just had? How can we hold on to this beautiful experience we had last night at our Christmas concert? That was such an amazing concert. How can we hold on to that spirit, that devotion, that love that was awakened by listening to that beautiful music? Our choir, they were channels for that. It's another thing. If you want to, Swami Kriyananda always says, if you want to know me, sing my music. But if you want to know those qualities of spirit, sing, especially music that comes from a spiritual master or great ones that have followed on the path. But all those ways are ways to awaken and remember that devotion. But remember to ask the masters for help. I'm going to be getting off of my meditation pillow here in a few minutes, okay? I've got a big day in front of me. Can you help me today? How can you help me to remember you? Remember the essence of who you are. Remember joy. Remember kindness. And then a fourth point is they always say in real estate, location is so important. Environment, Yogananda says environment, stronger than willpower. Come, especially in this holy season. They say when the times that a master comes and leaves this world, those are sacred times. The veil's thin. We can feel for their presence more clearly, which was really obvious again last night and in all the events coming up. Surround yourself in people who can support you in those efforts, who can help remind you of what you're doing. And whether you live in community or not, even if we live in community, we still have a choice. Yogananda would say the moments, take care of the moments, and they take care of the years. And every moment, even living in community, we get to decide, are we going to go to meditation or not? What thoughts are we going to have in this moment? So wherever we are, we have that opportunity. But again, coming into environment, like-minded souls who could support us in our efforts, because we know that it's hard. And again, this time of year, we get busier, right? We get drawn out, and we can get into the outer aspects of Christmas, which is all the outer activities and all that, and we forget what's happening inside. Are we feeling Christ's presence? Are we awakening and readying our cradle of consciousness for Christ to come? And again, it's just in those moments, and it's those little things. Sometimes we can put on a big concert, a big event or whatever, but again, it's also just those little things that make a matter, that matter. Someone, a great saint, was asked, how do you make something devotional? Just by offering something that comes naturally in your heart, from who you are, offered with great joy. And then the masters will accept it with great joy because it comes from you. It is your gift. It's your unique gift. That beautiful song, Shawl of Gold, we always sing it this time of year, and it's such one of the most beautiful reminders of what happens when we give just from our heart. And then when we all give, and that's the season of giving, when we all give from our hearts, then we create this tapestry of gold, and it changes. It's like the beggar that came to the great king, and he was expecting something from the great king, and he had been begging all day. And then he gives the king just a tiny, grain of rice, right? And then the king goes away. And at the end of the day, when the beggar empties out his pouch, he sees that one grain of rice has turned to gold. And the beggar thinks, what if I've given him everything? What if I had just given him everything? And that's the invitation in the season, is to just give of everything, but from the inside out. So remembering, we have probably about 2 weeks left till Christmas, remembering the spiritual Christmas, the social Christmas. We have a blessed, wonderful, you'll hear, it's probably written in your bulletins, all the wonderful events we have coming up. But let's make this a special Christmas together, and blessings to everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Gangamata's thought of asking for help reminds me of the prayer of the tired hiker. If you don't know the prayer of the tired hiker, it's one worth knowing. It's Lord, you pick them up, I'll put them down. What keeps us from living in the presence of God? God's presence is equally everywhere, all the time, equally available, all the time. What keeps us from living in the presence of God, living in the joy of God all the time? Fear? Self-involvement? As C.S. Lewis noted, many people want to serve God, but mostly in an advisory capacity. The thought that we somehow know better how it's supposed to be. Think about all the noise that's going on the planet right now about Muslims being the new boogeymen. And if it's not the Muslims, it's the Mexicans, right? Is it Donald Trump who's kind of going on rampage after rampage? It was, let's build a mile tall wall between here and Mexico, just to keep all the illegal immigrants out. And then the thing that happened over in Paris, that great tragedy, and now it's about the Muslims, and let's keep all the Muslims out. And then then all the noise about the GMOs. And all the noise about it, just go, and it's noise after noise after noise after noise, driving restlessness, driving concern, driving us into self-involvement and pettiness. I've been very impressed, the world is an equal, Master used to say, Yogananda used to say that the world is an equal mix of good and bad, sand and salt, sand and sugar. And that the wise ant selects only the sugar from the mix. And I've been watching, we had a fairly significant event in the community just a few days ago with the floods. We had 3.5, 4 inches of rain in 24 hours in our community flooded, and one apartment in particular got a huge onslaught of very unpleasant conditions. And there were 3, 4 people living there. And first of all, the community turned out in support of what was needed. There were about 12 people running around trying to address the situation and really working with the entire circumstances. And they were very focused, but there was a lot of joy and friendship and cooperation and not a whit of grumbling, not the slightest amount of it. But also the residents of the home. There was this great sense of just dealing with it, but within hours of, the home, they had to move out. The home is, under remodel now, the apartment. Just a really sweet note about being concerned for others and about the blessings that come from times of trial and the remarkable resource that is community. And we've got a friend who's facing what is probably one of the, if not the, big test of her life. She's got a pancreatic cancer. And every single day she gets up, "How are you doing?" She says, "I'm doing just fine. I am just doing wonderfully." She just never for a moment affirms anything except the joy of God as her one reality, no matter what's going on. Think about the things that scare you for just a moment, that contract the heart. The message of the path is not that everything is equal and everything is okay, but that God's light is in the midst of every circumstance. And whether ignorant or wise is how Yogananda says it. But think about the things that scare you or the people that offend you. And think for just a moment that those are not their limitations, but your own. To the degree that we have any reactivity, to the degree that we shrink away, we block the presence of God. And what we can do instead is we can open ourselves to a deeper understanding. When we get into our center, we talk every week, and I know many of us wrestle with meditating. For many of us, it's an act of self-offering and will every time we do it. But we talk about it perpetually because it's only in the stillness of meditation that we're able to actually let go of our egos, our sense of individuality and sense of difference, sense of separation. So really it is the gold, it's the silver bullet. It is the one thing that works for everybody equally and is the most powerful way to come into the contact of God, to live in His presence. But think about, how can you expand your heart right here, right now? And it might help to close your eyes. It might help to go into the inward state just a little bit and feel, how can you expand your heart to embrace all these things that seem like such horrible limitations and terrible things, and allow light to pour through you in blessing and support of God's light in those circumstances. That's how Christ can live inside of us. That's how God can fill us up. There's a very sweet chapter in the Autobiography of a Yogi that I live with on a regular basis. Oops. It is the chapter in the experience of cosmic consciousness. I don't live in that chapter because I'm living in cosmic consciousness constantly, but because I remember that it is the goal. And it's a very sweet circumstance. The poem Samadhi came out of that, and he talks about what it's like to be in this ecstatic state. But then afterwards, he says to his guru, he says to his teacher, he says, tell me. And he says, I was taught how to not only have that experience, but to summon it at will, how to draw on that experience at will. And then he goes to his teacher, his guru, and he says, sir, I want to know, when will I find God? and his guru says, you have found him. Oh, no, sir, I don't think so. My guru was smiling. I'm sure you aren't expecting a venerable personage adorning a throne in some antiseptic corner of the cosmos. I see, however, that you are imagining that the possession of miraculous powers is knowledge of God. One might have the whole universe and find the Lord elusive still. Spiritual advancement is not measured by one's outward powers, but only by the depth of his bliss in meditation. Only by the depth of your bliss in meditation. Ever new joy is God. He is inexhaustible. And as you continue your meditations through the years, He will beguile you with infinite ingenuity. Devotees like yourself who have found the way to God never dream of exchanging Him for any other happiness. He is seductive beyond the thought of any competition. How quickly we weary of earthly treasures and pleasures. Desire for material things is endless. We're never satisfied completely and pursue one goal after another. The something else we seek is the Lord, who alone can grant lasting joy. I understand now, sir, why saints call the Lord unfathomable. Even lasting life could not suffice to apprise Him. That's true, but He's also near and dear. After the mind has been cleared by Kriya Yoga of sensory obstacles, meditation furnishes a twofold proof of God. Ever new joy is evidence of His existence, convincing to our very atoms. And in meditation, one finds instant guidance, His adequate response to every difficulty. I see, you have solved my problem. I smiled gratefully. I do realize now that I have found God. For whenever, and this is it, for whenever the joy of meditation has returned subconsciously during my active hours, I have been subtly directed to adopt the right course in everything, even details. Swamiji ties living in the presence of God with practicality in this week's topics, because it's in the presence of God, the ruler of the cosmos, the only thing that understands everything and has the best wishes, the best intent for everything at heart. It's only in tune with that and receptive to that that we can be appropriately in relationship to life. It's the most practical thing in the world. And then through the course of life, I've watched, we're going to end the talk because I don't want to go on too long, although this is the great topic, so we could go on forever. What we start to work with now is our own lives and the experiment of our own lives, asking, if I do this, is it really true? And every time you go into meditation and you come out and you ask the question of life, what's true? Will I be taken care of? Does God really love me? If I really open my heart, if I really care for Donald Trump, or is it Bernie Sanders, or Clinton, or if I really care for the person who's been so mean to me, or if I really step into this uncertain situation and stay there, will I be taken care of? Will these things work out? Will life be more fruitful? Will my own life be filled with more joy? You will never know, we will never know the answer unless we do the experiment ourselves. It's not enough to live by what Yogananda says, unless we do what he says enough to prove it for ourselves. It's not enough to live by, having a good Sunday service, unless you take these principles home and practice them. And it's deeper and deeper and deeper. I'm going to talk now to those who've been at this for years. You have to understand that we get simple projects to work on early on. But the sum total, God is infinite. There is no place where He doesn't exist. And we have to purge ourselves, and it's why purification happens every week. It's why we do services. It's why we meditate every day. We have to go deeper and deeper and deeper and let go of deeper levels of resistance, deeper levels of constriction, deeper levels of fear that are more subtle, until one day we wake up and realize there is nothing else. There is nothing left but that light of God. Number 112 in Whispers from Eternity. O Father, behold me through the pores of the sky. Smile at me through the twinkling stars. Strengthen me through the sun and calm my feelings through the moon. Caress me through the breeze. Love me through my love. Throb in me through my heart and breathe thine immortality through this mortal frame of mine. Speak through my voice. Help others through my hands and use my mind to inspire them. Breathe through my breath, for within this fragile vial, thou alone canst sing thy complete eternal song. We'll have music.